terms of urban planning, I think a very important issue is the way people use underground space. I mean, what did we do in Boston when we wanted to relieve congestion? We built a highway underground. Using the underground space has been well recognized as critically important in the development for a long, long time. You know, even car parking and trivial things like this are using underground space. What's very interesting to me is we need to use it more effectively as a resource. The best example I can give there, we're working on a project jointly with, sponsored by the Chinese government, jointly with Tsinghua University, where we're looking at using the ground as a heat storage medium to try and reduce energy costs in heating and cooling buildings. Now, people are very familiar with this concept at the level of the individual building. Ground source heat pumps as a technology has been around a long time. But the idea of integrating it into the urban infrastructure is new and is something which places like China, which are trying to reduce their carbon footprint, are suddenly very, very interested in. And that is a giant challenge, trying to figure out how you share underground resources, shallow underground resources in the city, especially where you've got tunnels which give off a lot of heat from the subway systems and so forth. So we're getting involved in some bigger urban planning issues involving use of underground space and underground resources. I mean, one of the things that makes China so distinctly different to Western societies at the moment is the scale of development is so large. They're imagining building whole new cities. That's why you know, this discussion about using the ground as a heat storage medium is practical to consider in the context of China, where you're building a brand new city. If you were to ask me what is the bigger challenge the world faces, it's the renovation of old cities. I mean, clearly if you bulldoze a site and you create enough space, you've got a lot of freedoms. But I think, as all of us know, when you plan big infrastructure projects, tackling the existing condition is the biggest challenge. Who owns the land? Who has the rights? Who has the jurisdiction? So the challenges are actually much more severe for brownfield development or redevelopment of urban environments, because they pose so many more constraints on the engineering solutions you can use. But China gets both. It's got giant cities and it's got, you know, which need to be renovated, and it's got new cities that are being built. So it's got both challenges, if you like. And of course the scale of development in China is so dramatic, you know, so rapid, that there are so many challenges coming out there at the moment. I mean, they're building so many subways in Shanghai alone that it dwarfs everyone else. So in terms of actually doing these projects, there's a tremendous amount going on in China. What I see which is fundamentally problematic, there are very few places that integrate their thinking on urbanization. One of the greatest things about working in Singapore the last 5 years has been to see the way a very constrained environment like Singapore operates in trying to create, you know, good urban spaces. I mean, their redevelopment of the Marina Bay area is a remarkable triumph of trying to find out how to deal with the transportation issues, the utility issues, providing the space for a new downtown area. They built a big new casino and entertainment resort, and then at the same time they converted a river estuary into a reservoir for water supply. So they're dealing with the multiple different things interacting at the same time. So they're dealing with very complex urban issues. And very few places are able to deal with that in a coherent way, because it involves different agencies who are not really accustomed to talking to one another. So doing sort of planning of very complex things, I think, is a big challenge. And Singapore has been probably the best example of trying to handle that and preserve the quality of the environment.